Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar with the People's Plant. My name is Emily, and I'm the Senior Campaign Lead here at Birchal. And just before I introduce you to the team, which is Beck, Emily, and Ben, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land that we're coming to you from today. Birchal is based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. As mentioned, I'm joined by Beck, Emily, and Ben from the People's Plant. Birchal's working with them on their upcoming crowdsource funding offer. A few of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with what crowdsource funding or CSF is, or you might even know it as equity crowdfunding. But essentially, it's a relatively new form of fundraising here in Australia that started in 2018. So it allows smaller businesses and startups to raise capital from a large number of smaller or retail investors, as well as wholesale and sophisticated investors through an online platform such as Birchal. So instead of seeking funding from traditional sources such as a bank or venture capitalists, companies can turn to the general public, and often that's their communities, to raise money in exchange for equity in their business. Birchal Financial Services is the licensed intermediary for the offer, and I do want to remind everybody in attendance or who is watching today that the information and discussion in this webinar is for informational purposes only and should not be considered as financial advice or a recommendation to invest. So I would implore you to please do your own research and always consider the offer document and general CSF risk warning before investing. If you do need any more information, you can head to birchal.com, or you can shoot us an email at support@birchal.com if you've got any specific questions. Now, how today's session is going to run, I'll hand over to the team and they'll take us through a great presentation all about the People's Plant. So where they've come from, what they've achieved since their last raise with us, as this is their second raise, and what they're looking to do with this raise. And then we'll switch to a Q&A session. So if you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see a little Q&A bubble. So if you've got any questions during today's session, please pop it in the Q&A box as we go along, and you will be able to ask any questions that you'd like. We are recording today's session, so if you do need to jump off early, a recording will be sent around. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Emily, Ben, and Beck.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and thank you, Emily, for the lovely introduction. So we are the People's Plant, cannabis by the people for the people. And who are we? Our mission is to put cannabis back in the hands of the people. We believe we want to become the most trusted and loved medicinal cannabis brand out there. I'm going to speak more in the next slide. So our story, again, I'm Rebecca. This is my brother, Ben. And we've had Emily working with us for nearly about 4 years on and off in different capacities. So we have a long-term relationship here. But it started with a family. So Ben, my brother, Tim, our cousin, and myself, we began, and we're proudly based on the Sunshine Coast. We're fully licensed. We focus on sustainability, quality, and affordability. So again, we're family owned and operated, and we're dedicated to a patient-centric care and providing affordable and reliable supply.
What we've done so far. So just to give you a little bit of a background, I studied natural medicine, so I'm a naturopath. Medical herbalism is a large part of that. So I'm coming at it from a medical herbalist perspective and what creates a high quality medical herb. So in medical herbalism, the closer it is to its natural state, the higher the quality of the herb. There is a movement in the medicinal cannabis industry where indoor grown is considered a high quality, but it's more about aesthetics, whereas the actual therapeutic value, there's documentation supporting that the outdoor grown is a very high quality and a better quality plant. And coming at it from a medical herbalist perspective, that's what we're wanting to achieve, is the highest therapeutic value that's possible. So with our R&D and our 6 years of R&D, that's been our goal, is to achieve the highest quality medical herb that we can in a most cost-effective way of doing it. We started by putting seeds in the ground, and then through a very much like a Zen approach, we would add things to remove risks or to remove obstacles that prevented us from success. We spent quite a long time getting our methodology right. So we're able to, like the biggest risk of an outdoor grow is one weather event, such as a cyclone or something coming through and wiping out your entire crop, and then you've lost your whole year. So we've had to implement a little bit of technology so that we're removing these risks. So that risk is removed by being able to grow in a vegetative state in a greenhouse. So we've added a greenhouse to our methodology, and then we had caterpillars eating our flowers. So then we had to put an insect exclusion netting up. So there's all these steps that we've taken to get to the point where we're ready to commercialize. So we've removed all the risks that we were not able to live with, such as caterpillars or a weather event or something like that, but with the goal of having a very, very minimalistic energy input that's required. So a very, very environmentally friendly approach, but with a very, very high quality end product. So they're the goals that we have been working towards for 6 years. And we've developed something that's quite unique. I've never actually seen this done in a commercial way anywhere in the world. And it's something that I've been sort of researching. So it's a hybrid model where we're growing sort of indoors, greenhouse, and outdoors. We're taking the best of everything, but it's done so that the energy that's required is as minimalistic as possible, without any compromise on the highest quality herb at the end of the production. So that's pretty much what we've achieved in the last 6 years. On top of that, because we're growing outdoors, it's a microclimate that requires specific genetics. So some cultivars will grow particularly well in our environment, some won't. So we've been also developing our own genetics that matches our microclimate. So the combination of our methodology and the genetics that we've developed gives us a very high quality product at a very streamlined economical price and a very, very small energy footprint. So that's kind of the goal of that. That's where we are at the moment. And now we're wanting to scale that and commercialize it. That's what we've done so far. This is a video of from our last CSF. We raised enough money to build the greenhouse and the insect exclusion netting. This video will go for about a minute. You can see quite a bit of rain over Christmas. But everything we've done, because we've had 6 years to work on this, we've been setting everything up. So it's dry wood, so to speak. We just need to put a match to it and it's ready to go. So that's the insect exclusion netting going up, and then the greenhouse is in the forefront. It goes very quickly. I wish it was this quick to build. I'd say that would be Christmas break. And it's just about to be finished. Yeah, so basically we're vegetating in that greenhouse and flowering in that insect exclusion netting. So basically, if you look at the life cycle of a plant, it requires as minimalistic energy input as possible to achieve a perpetual harvest outdoors. Okay, that's where it's finished. And I'll now talk about what's next. What's next? So we've now got the ability to grow about 9.5 tonne every year. So we're running 1,200 plants every 2 weeks. So 1,200 plants go into the greenhouse, 1,200 plants go from the greenhouse to the outdoors, 1,200 plants is harvested. And now where those harvested plants go is what we're working on next. So we need to build the drying rooms, the post-harvest activities. So your bucking, your trimming. We need to build the room that will house the bubble hash and the rosin pressing. We also need to build a little laboratory for testing and all the quality control on the product. Then we need to build secure storage and admin. So we're actually we're able to grow it now. What we need to do next is to be able to handle all that commercial volume of product. And that's what this CSF is for. Once we're established, we'll be able to produce, we're talking 9.5 tonnes a year. And this is our stage one. So stage one is literally 1 acre. We've got about 160 acres on our property to grow into. So we've got future stages in mind. Stage 1 is 9.5 tons. Stage 2 is sort of doubling that. We've got stages out till 2030 where we sort of, once we're producing about 30 ton a year, we're just going to see how it goes, but we will have plenty of land, plenty of space, plenty of sunshine, plenty of water to grow with the demand that the market has. So the limiting factor will not be what we can produce, but it will be what the market is able to absorb. So we're looking at the domestic market primarily, but also overseas on where we are able to supply the demand. So that's kind of our next step. So breaking it right down, next step is being able to handle the 9.5 ton in stage 1. Once stage 1 is done, then the sky's the limit as to how far we can go.
Okay, thanks, Ben. So one of the things that makes the People's Plant quite different to a lot of other cultivators in Australia is that we're really strongly focused on sustainable production. So as Ben mentioned before, we've spent 6 years in R&D developing our own grow methodologies, intellectual property. So we've got our OptiGrow methodology, which allows us for year-round flexible perpetual harvests, because we're able to propagate indoors when the plants are at their most risk and need the most care. We then move them out into our greenhouse nursery. And that really just looks after the young plants while they're in the vegetated phase. And then we move them outdoors for flowering into that protected cropping netting structure that you saw go up in the previous video. So what this enables us is to significantly reduce our environmental footprint. So when we look at the energy consumption of indoor versus outdoor operations, outdoor cultivation usually uses 90% less energy than those that are indoors. Now, I do want to talk about the fact that we do have indoor grow rooms as well. Now, this enables us, in the unlikely event that we lose a crop outdoors, and we can safely say that we didn't even lose our crop in the recent cyclone. If you're aware of Cyclone Alfred that just hit us in southeast Queensland, our crop is actually outdoors under the sun right now finishing up, which is fantastic to see. But it enables us with our combination of indoor and outdoor, we can reduce our energy footprint. But if anything happens in the first couple of years while we're becoming established, we are able to supplement with an indoor grow. But our idea is to, as we expand, all those indoor grow rooms will turn into indoor mother rooms so that we can just supply pure outdoor cultivation. So we're pesticide free. We also grow in organic living soil as well as a hydroponic system. And this enables us to meet various market demands and different customer requirements. One of the things that we really love about the way we grow here is that we've got local supply. We're an ethical producer, and we really put being environmentally responsible at the top of our list. So we've got a huge amount of water on site. We've got backup generators. We're going to install a gold standard solventless extraction system. And what this means is that we don't use any solvents in that process. So some of our flowers will end up as flour as the finished product, but some will actually go into concentrates and extraction through this solventless techniques, so that we're able to then sell those to downstream partners, and they could become tinctures or gummies, perhaps even drinks in the future if our legislations change. But it really sets us apart. There's no one else in Australia, to our knowledge, that is currently using solventless extraction. So this enables us to enhance both our efficacy and our product range, because we're treating it on site. So we might talk a little bit later about the fresh frozen bubble hash process for those of you who might be interested. So what this really enables is great market opportunities. So for those of you who've been following the cannabis journey here in Australia, so cannabis became legalized for medical use back in 2016. And since then, we've seen significant growth both here in Australia, but in jurisdictions all over the world. So the Australian cannabis market is expected to reach $1.5 billion by 2030. And for those who are interested in the CAGR, we've actually got a 22 to 24% growth over the next 5 years. Now, traditionally, most markets are more around that 5 to 7%. So this is huge. We're seeing an exponential growth in patient approvals in Australia. The demand just continues to grow. We've got such a variety of different medical indications that cannabis is prescribed for. And not to mention the potential of a legal adult use market. So we did have a federal bill come up in Parliament last year that was unfortunately unsuccessful, but we do have 3 bills currently up in state parliaments, thanks to the Legalised Cannabis Party. So it is something that we believe is not a question of if, but when, and we're really well poised to take advantage of that. When it happens.
Yeah.
We believe we've got a great competitive advantage by our Australian grown and low-cost production. We've got the potential for a diverse product portfolio by being able to sell concentrates as well as the biomass. And this helps us supply our local domestic industry and domestic manufacturers, but also allows us to have international export opportunities. And as Ben mentioned before, we've already planned our on-site expansion. So maybe just to quickly touch on some of our strategic partnerships. So we do have offtake agreements for our stage 1 crop, our 9.5 tonnes, but we've also got partnerships when it comes to genetics, retailers, wholesalers, and distributors. And this enables us to be able to very quickly sell the biomass and extracts that we make from our crop. But we do also have, we also plan to have our own brand in the market as well. So what sets us apart? So here at the People's Plant, we believe we're doing things a little bit differently. We strongly believe and support Australian grown cannabis, and we believe sun-grown cannabis is the way to go. We have a really strong focus on sustainable and ethical cultivation models. What this enables us in our approach is that we've got a low cost capital expenditure as well as low operating costs. So this means we've got lower startup and production costs, which makes us very competitive in the existing Australian market, but also potentially if we look at exporting overseas. So we've got the option to be flexible here with our OptiGrow methodology and our perpetual harvest cycle, which enables us to have 26 harvests per year here. We've also got the ability to do our on-site solventless extraction as opposed to shipping this off to a downstream partner. We're really focused on cannabis with a conscience. So we believe it's time that people started to think, where does their cannabis come from? Has it been grown sustainably and ethically? And for me, I like to support Aussie grown across my different consumer choices. And it's no different, I believe, with cannabis. We're very community orientated here at the People's Plant. We've got a unique market strategy and we've got the ability to scale, but to do it affordably. So that's probably about it for our presentation, but we would love to open the floor to questions and hope that you would like to join us in shaping the future of medicinal cannabis here in Australia.
Thank you so much for that brilliant presentation. I'm glad that you kept it at a nice length because I think we're going to have a lot of questions. If you could possibly, you did. Thank you so much. Just wanted to see your lovely faces. All right, we've got a few questions coming in already. So at this stage, how many acres are you growing?
So we're starting with a modest 1 acre. Initially, we got our license for 12 acres, and that was to produce 27 tonnes annually. And we realised that was just far too big to start with. And we went through the painstaking process of making an amendment to that license, which took another 12 months. But it was well worth doing it to bring it right down just to 1 acre to make it a good place to start. It's certainly big enough to make a good imprint, but it's small enough to be achieved.
Yeah, 9.5 tonnes from an acre is huge. Is a very massive place to start.
9.5 million grams. So
Huge.
Who work in grams.
So of the percentage of the funds that you're raising, what percentage will go directly into revenue generating activities rather than admin costs? That might be a tricky one to answer.
Yeah, off the cuff, it's a tricky one, but you can see we are a very lean team. So admin costs are very minimal. Yeah,
the whole idea at this point is to keep everything as streamlined as possible. We've only got just the staff that's required. We've got the intellect required to make the plan work. but we don't have the manpower to scale it at this point, and we're going to keep it streamlined until such time as we do need that manpower. So as much of the funds as possible go into infrastructure, and that infrastructure is what's going to get us into a commercial situation.
So there's been a couple of questions about return on investment. So there might be a few people here who are a little bit unfamiliar with how crowdsource funding investments work. So when you do make an investment under a crowdsource funding offer, like you would be doing through the People's Plant, you should consider it a medium to long-term investment. So you're purchasing shares in either a privately listed or a publicly unlisted company. And so therefore these shares are generally considered illiquid. So they're not able to be traded on a public exchange like you would on, say, the ASX. So you might not be able to easily transfer the shares or sell them when you would like to. So a lot of the companies that you'll see on the Birchal platform are new, early stage or rapidly growing ventures. So companies like that often have in very early stages, and they have many years of hard work ahead of them to grow the business and execute on their strategy. So that's essentially what your investment would be spent on. But that being said, there are various ways that you could potentially receive a return on your investment. So, for example, the company could undertake an IPO and list on a securities exchange like the ASX. They could undertake an exit event, such as the sale of the company. They might do a share buyback scheme. They might declare dividends. There's a few ways to do it, but at this early stage, it's not reasonable for a company to be able to predict when or if any of these options might eventuate and what the return on investment might be. So always read the CSF offer document before investing. And if you do have further questions, you're welcome to reach out to us at support@birchal.com. Hopefully that answers your question. So please let me know if not. So at this point, what is going to be your most profitable product segment and how will you scale it?
Yeah, so at this point in time, the market is really flower in Australia. What we're seeing in other markets, that changes as the market matures. And as it matures, flower becomes maybe 50% of the market, and then derivatives. So things that the solventless extract would go into, such as edibles, so gummies, that type of thing, or vape carts. So the extraction becomes a larger segment of the market. So what will be our most profitable part of our business, I believe, it's nearly on par what we will achieve with our flour as what we will also achieve with our extract. The extract affords us a little bit of risk mitigation around weather events. We're able to harvest a little bit earlier, then the product may not be suitable for flour presentation, but it would be suitable for extraction, for solventless extraction. So we've sort of got all these different options available to us. What will be the most profitable? I guess time will tell. Yeah, but we're sort of setting ourselves up so that we're able to grow. We're able to meet the market where it currently is, but we're actually able to really grow into a mature market. And all the sort of modeling that we've done is on a mature market, in the sense that at the moment, flour is incredibly competitive and somewhat crowded. We're anticipating that the price will drop considerably in the flour market, and we're in a position where we will be able to thrive when that price point really drops. So yeah, I'm just spending a lot of time in connection with North California at the moment and seeing what's happening over there, and that's an environment that we'll be able to excel in.
And it's probably important to also add to that initially we're focusing on B2B sales. So we're not looking at developing our own brand straight off the cuff, because we want to get the product, we want all that biomass out the door. And while we can satisfy the need, the hunger for dried flour at the moment, and we can do that organically as well as more traditional hydroponic methods, but sun-grown as well, with the concentrates, it really enables us to value add. So those concentrates are something that is really sought after. And again, as Ben mentioned, in those mature markets, it really is, you know, the live rosin and solventless extraction, which is the prized high-end top tier products. And that's another way that we're able to set ourselves apart.
Awesome. So when you do start cultivating products, what strains will you be growing?
Yeah, so there's so many different names for so many different strains out there, and an example might be Durban Poison. So Durban Poison is a landrace strain out of South Africa, and that Durban Poison may be grown from many different facilities, and it's a little bit different in each one. What we're doing is I think Australia needs to stand up and present itself. So we're wanting to breed our own cultivars that are uniquely ours, that are Australian, that do particularly well in our microclimate. So it will be a Sunshine Coast flavour as such. So if you're growing indoors, it doesn't matter where in the world. If you're doing a good job, it should all be the same. What is unique is when you're growing it outdoors and you're interacting with the climate, with the weather patterns and all that sort of thing. And that has an influence on the strains and the cultivars that do well in that environment. So it will be a constantly evolving and developing process where we will match the strains to the requirements that the market is demanding. We'll stay very much in touch with that. We're very much globally aware, and if you talk a lot about candy and diesel, these two flavors are very strong in California, so we can match those two flavors, but it will be uniquely ours. And what we're also wanting to do is in our community actually start to share naming these strains. So there can be a bit of fun and interaction that we can have with our community, where we can run competitions, and who can come up with the best strain name. And that's something that we'll grow into as time passes. Would you like to share?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Brilliant. So how did everything hold up during the recent storm?
Actually, these are really good questions. I also am hearing a lot of people asking questions about mold. So maybe Ben's obviously the best person. He lives here. He's on site. He lives and breathes what we're doing here. So he can really talk to this.
Okay. So we did a reel yesterday afternoon that I think just got posted. So you're able to see that on our socials, and it's showing the crop as it is right now after the cyclone. So there's three concerns with a cyclone. There's probably more, but three big ones. One is flooding, wind, and then prolonged weather, rain. They're the things that we're worried about. Flood, we've chosen a property that won't be affected by flooding. So we're on the top of a crest. That's not an issue. The second one is wind, and that's where the insect exclusion netting helps to take the force of those gale force winds. And then the last one is prolonged rain, and that's our genetics. So we bred strains that are quite resistant and mildew tolerant. And if you look at the reels, you'll actually be able to see the crop. And we've got flowers, like a foot long or more, quite big, that are absolutely thriving in this environment. So Mother Nature has the capacity to do whatever she wants. 100% respect for Mother Nature. We were very fortunate that it wasn't as bad as nowhere near as bad as it could have been, but we still had probably 3 weeks of overcast weather with rain every single day. This time of year is probably one of the most difficult times of year to grow outdoors here in Southeast Queensland. And then the crop speaks for itself, and you'll be able to see that virtually as it is live today on that reel on our socials. They're thriving. It's a testament to the breeding that we've done. Do you want to say?
Yeah, I might just add, being able to grow the plants outdoors and keeping them really healthy. Plants are just like humans. So, when we're doing well, when we're looking after ourselves, we're less likely to get sick or to be impacted, by stressful events. And it's the same with plants. So we've chosen, and bred elite genetics, and then the way that we care for the plant, basically boosting the plant's immune system, making sure they've got strong root zone microbiology, and now with this protected cropping netting that excludes insects, which also protects from hail and wind. We're able to protect them a little bit, but they're such strong, vibrant plants, which is different to when you grow them indoors. It's just like, again, it's like people. You imagine if you just live in aircon where everything's perfect all the time, and then all of a sudden you step outdoors, that's really hard to deal with. But if you're used to being outside, in the heat, in a bit of wind, in a little bit of rain, it actually encourages a stronger, healthier plant, and then the plant is more resilient. And one of the beautiful things about cannabis and growing outdoors is cannabis produces terpenes to actually protect itself. So by growing them outdoors, we're actually increasing the terpene production because the plant is actually doing exactly what its defense mechanism is meant to do, and that's producing all the cannabinoids and terpenes in those sticky trichomes to protect itself from the sun, like sunscreen, or from insect and disease pressures. So we're really just encouraging the plant to be as healthy and strong and resilient as it can be. And look, we were all afraid with the cyclone coming, but we also realized that this was a great opportunity for us to see, well, we can put our money where our mouth is, and has all those steps we've put in place helped protect our plants. And I do encourage you to hit up our Instagram page at The People's Plant, and you can see for yourself.
Brilliant. So actually following on from that, are you able to control the levels of THC with outdoor growing?
So that's largely based around, you can influence it, you can sort of guide it. It's largely your genetics, and then a little bit with your fertigation, and a little bit how you treat it. When you've got stable genetics, your environment will have influences on it, but the influences are relatively, there's a tolerance, and that's sort of a representation of the tolerance in the market in Australia at this point in time. That's the legal or the TGA enforced tolerance levels. We should be able to fall well within those.
And just really being able to harvest the crop at the right time. So making sure that the nutrition program is optimal. And then we're in the crop every day. So inspecting the trichomes so that you're actually harvesting right at the right time. So there's just like picking blueberries or citrus, there's a perfect time. So, we're really monitoring the trichomes, and then we know exactly when is the perfect time to harvest so that we've got the highest level of cannabinoids, whether that's THC or CBD, depending on where the crop is going to. We are able to optimize those THC levels with genetics and then fertigation and harvesting on time. And of course, you can't drop the ball in the post-harvest. So that's also a very important process.
Brilliant. So with this next raise, what will be the minimum investment amount?
From an individual investor is $250. Keeping it the same as our last raise, we found that would appeal to most people, and that was a good entry point.
Great. I will just let everybody know as well, if you are what's considered a retail investor, you are able to invest up to $10,000. If you do want to invest more than $10,000, you will need a wholesale a wholesale investor certificate, which you can get from your accountant. If you need some more information on that, I'll pop a little link to it in the comments. So at this point, how many major competitors are there in the space in Australia?
Oh, yeah.
I would say we're not at a point where we're competing in Australia yet. I think there is more than enough room for Australian growers, and we're working really collectively with the industry. So I think there's an opportunity for us to lift and support all Australian growers. The Australian market is currently dominated by imports. We're still waiting for the most recent data to come out, but for 2023, we saw a 70% increase in the number of imports into Australia and only a 7% increase in local production. So I think Australia is a great place to grow anything, and definitely, we've got a history with cannabis. So there's a lot of people, and there's probably some people on the call today, who have been growing cannabis despite prohibition. And we really need to take advantage of our fantastic climate, our innovation, our ability to grow. And we actually don't see competition from other Australian growers. In fact, we work with other Australian growers. We attend training days with other growers. We help educate other growers. We are involved in the Australian Medicinal Cannabis Association and Australian Cannabis Cultivators, because we believe there's a space for a lot more Aussie growers. And instead, we need to band together, support Australian grown, and actually push back against the imports. So I encourage anyone who's on the call, if you are a patient, your medicine, and perhaps, talk to your doctor if there's an alternative that would be suitable for you that's actually Australian grown, and to support our Aussie growers.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a big plug for the Aussie growers. Please get behind all the Australian growers. We all do it differently. So I think we with our sun-grown approach, as well as being able to provide organic, there's not many people who are doing that in Australia at all. So we're actually not feeling in competition at all. We're feeling like we're all working together and we're a great team. We had a recent Australian Cannabis Cultivators Training Day in Brisbane just last month. And it's just so great the way all the growers get together and share insights and troubles. And by the end of the day, the biggest concern was, how do we push back against imports? So help us on that level and support Aussie grown.
Yeah, there's medicine miles. Like, food miles, it's medicine miles. Yeah, try to keep it as local as possible.
Brilliant. So apart from the medicinal purposes of your product, have you had much consideration to using other parts of the plant fibers for materials such as clothing, ropes, containers, etc.?
They look at me because it makes me so excited. All of the possibilities for this plant. Yeah. I'm super excited, and we are looking at these options for, especially as far as using our waste as well. So watch this space, but not yet.
But I think what I would add in regards to us having less waste is, because we can do our own solventless extraction on site, we actually can utilize a lot of our trim, which other local producers it would not be economically viable for them to send that to a downstream partner to do that extraction. So it does enable us to be able to use more parts of the plant, and then the rest of our product, of our waste product, which is quite minimal in the end, we actually compost on site. So there is the ability to then use that compost for down the line.
Yeah, it helps remediate the soil. So it's an input.
Awesome. So going back to buying Australian produced and grown product, what is the cost of production advantage? So what is the likely advantage or disadvantage to domestic and international producers? Is it marginal, or is it a larger, is it a bit different?
Yeah, so I guess just to give a bit of a gauge, so our cost of production is around the 20 cents once it's finished per gram. A traditional indoor grow can be anywhere from, people talk between $3 to even $5 per gram to produce 1 gram. In a greenhouse, it can be anywhere from, say, $2 to $3. And this varies from producer to producer. But that is certainly one of our strengths in the methodology that we've created, is we really use very minimal electricity. And that's probably the largest input in an indoor grow and a greenhouse. So once that large economic consumer is out of the equation, the price of production comes right down. And then we're able to then share that reward with patients. And that's how we're able to present an affordable product, is it actually costs us a lot less to produce, and then we can still make good profit and then sell it at maybe the cost of what others can produce it for.
And it's probably important to note that there's various jurisdictions around the world that have lower labour costs than Australia, as an example. So you have developed our methods to have limited touch, so that we can reduce our labour. It will always be something that Australia has to pay more for labour, But we also then, it starts to make us think, well, where is ethical production? There's talk now about sort of like sweatshop cannabis. So not just caring about the environment, but caring about the people who work in those industries. And I think it's important to remember that just because cannabis might be imported from an overseas, more established market, it doesn't always mean that it's better. So I know this happens in the wine industry as well. So why is that product being dumped on the Australian market at such a cheap price? Is it well past its use by date? Is it fresh? Is it really quality? So I think they're all things that need to be taken into consideration. And so, with our model, because we've got this perpetual harvest every 2 weeks, we're always going to be able to supply fresh cannabis. So it's not going to be 6, 12 plus months old sitting in a vault. We're growing it, we're processing it, we're getting it out the door.
Brilliant. So there's been a few more questions around the offer as a whole.
Oh, sorry, Em. Sorry, just to mention that has a lot to do with harvesting every 2 weeks. So that consistency out the door that Emily's mentioning is because of the model that Ben has set up. Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's been a few more. Sorry, I think my internet is being a little bit funny, so apologies to everybody. But there's been a few questions around the offer as a whole, and one about clarification on predicted finances and future milestones. So if I wasn't super clear before, I'll elaborate a little bit further. So essentially for early stage companies, they don't have a substantial basis to base future financial predictions or forecasts from. Therefore, it can be considered speculative and perhaps misleading to investors. So for equity crowdfunding companies or CSF companies, that's not something that is readily available at this stage in the company's lifespan. So hopefully that clears it up. And there has also been a few questions around the price of shares. So that will be released in the offer document when the offer does go live on Tuesday next week. So anything that you need from a financial perspective, that will be outlined in the offer document as well. So there's quite a bit of information in there. But if you do have any more in-depth questions you'd like to ask the team before the offer does go live next week, if you go to the People's Plant's Birchal profile, there is a message button and you can message the People's Plant team directly. So you can set up a meeting with them and have a chat about your questions in further detail before the offer goes live. So there's definitely that opportunity there. We also had a few questions from people about site visits. Is there the possibility to do that for investors?
Yes, there is. That's one of the rewards that we're offering is if an investor chooses to invest $10,000, they will be given an invitation to come and visit the farm. Those farm visits won't be available until such time as we've actually finished the security aspect of our facility. This is just part of our own internal protocol that everyone that comes on site will need to go through the proper security process, and we need to establish that basically the security of the facility first.
But for other tiered investors, we do offer remote tours, so that you'll be able to do like an online virtual tour, or to be able to chat with the founders or with our growers as well.
Great. So what tools are you currently using to monitor and control costs, and how often do you review those?
Tools
to monitor costs. Well, I guess it's a spreadsheet, isn't it?
Yeah, we're constantly in the spreadsheets.
Yeah. So we do have a fractional CFO. So a fractional meaning that he only helps us part-time when we need him. He's a very accomplished financier, and he is very instrumental in making sure that everything is to the dime forecast out. That's our CapEx, our OpEx. Basically, from this point in time until we get into production, it's a very clear pathway forward. So that's, I guess, a tool. He's not a tool. He's a lot more. But he's the instrument in which we are managing our financial aspect. And it's done on is taken very, very seriously, and it's done in a very professional and high caliber manner.
Yeah, and on the cultivation side of things, we're constantly looking at, how we can improve our efficacy in production. So by reducing our labor costs, reducing the cost of inputs, looking for alternative cheaper options, whether that comes down to the growing media or a fertilizer input. It's so important in cannabis in particular, but also across all crops that we grow, is that we are really efficient in those production methods. So it's something that we'll never stop doing. Always sharpening the pencil and looking at ways to improve production and lower the cost.
Great. So there's been a question on how investors can monitor the performance and updates of the companies they've invested in. And I know it'll be different for you versus other companies, but each company will have a share registry provider, which essentially will issue shares to new shareholders. And usually that's used as a communication facility for companies that are issuing shares. However, each company is different in the way that they like to communicate with investors. Beck, maybe you could give us a little bit of information on how you communicate with your investors now?
Yes. So we have frequent emails that go out to our investors, and we also have an investor hub that we have set up. And it has the latest from our social reels. It has updates from Ben about what's happening here on site. There's always the opportunity to reach out to us via email and contact us if anybody ever has any questions. And we also, I believe, Emily, Birchal, you can let us know, but I believe every October we also have to submit our financial records for all investors as well. So it's all done very ethically, it's all above board. It's all very easy for you to see exactly where the business is at any time. And we really encourage communication with our investors. And we have this hub at the moment, but the goal is to eventually develop our own app that people will be able to potentially have a communication between other investors as well, so that we're really working on that community aspect, because that's a really big part of who we are also, is our community work, whether it's within the cannabis industry, whether it's within our investors, or whether it's with the wider community. Thank you.
So you raised capital last year through Birchal, and it was towards the later end of last year. Why have you decided to raise capital again so soon?
Yeah, so we're really not wanting to waste time here. We're really wanting to get this business running. We raised the funds to establish our greenhouse and insect mesh. We've achieved those goals. Now we want to do our post-harvest. So we're building momentum. We're sort of building this force that's not going to be able to be stopped soon. And we're asking, we are putting it out there again that we do need more support to get this next stage accomplished, which is the post-harvest, so that we're wanting to actually have our permit or apply for our permit by the end of the year and be in market early next year. That's our goals. So we're really not wanting to waste time. We're really wanting to get this business up and running. Yeah. And because of all the work that we've done, everything's kind of pre-staged. It's all ready to go. The last requirement is actually the finances. So that's why we sort of put it out to the community. So everything is literally lined up, ready to go. Yeah.
Awesome. So how much marketing time will be required relative to staff time growing, and who is doing the selling?
Oh, that's such a good question. And that's why we're starting in a B2B situation, because we don't have the manpower to run a full retail campaign. So that is a staged approach. So our very first step is B2B. And that's for the People's Plant selling to other businesses our product, whether it be flour or the fresh frozen live rosin. We'll be selling to other businesses for them to put a final label on, which may be somebody else's label at the start.
But yeah, so just to clarify that we've got those offtake agreements, so we actually don't need someone to come in and do marketing for that. We're growers. That's our key focus. We've also got the ability, in this stage to do the primary processing, which is, from post-harvest drying, bucking, trimming. It may stop at the curing point if it's flour, or if it goes into extraction, and then that goes off in bulk. In the future, we hope to have an on-site GMP facility where we can then actually develop, package our own flour, but also make topicals, gummies. So it's all in the pipeline, but we're taking a staged approach, step by step, and we're really grateful for all of our supporters and investors for joining us on this journey. And we hope we've earned the trust of our investors by from the last CSF. So we did exactly what we said we were going to do it. I think we even did it in record time, and that's why we're back so soon to go, hey, we built what we said we were going to build. Now we can grow the 9.5 ton of cannabis, but we need to expand our post-harvest processing facility so that we can actually process it all.
I think one thing to also mention on that is the first 6 years was not funded by CSF or by big corporations or a big backer or anything else like that. It was done by the founders. It was done by friends and family. That's what got us through the R&D phase. And it wasn't until we have a clear, direct path to market and commercial viability that we then opened it to the public. So it is, we did it, we believe, in a very conservative, ethical, but straightforward way.
Brilliant. So obviously you've taken on investors last year and will be doing so again this year. Do you foresee you doing another capital raise in the future?
Probably depends on how this one goes. So we have two major steps that we need to accomplish. The next step is post-harvest, and then the step after that will be getting all the equipment to fill up that post-harvest, and then we're in the game. If we're able to achieve that in one CSF, then we're done. If we need to have a third CSF to get the equipment, we may need to do that. There's also the possibility we're we have the opportunity. We've applied for one federal grant and one state grant that the government has sort of put out there. One for innovation and one was more for local communities for economic stimulus. It's a dollar for dollar up to $5 million. So there's a possibility that one of those two grants, or even possibly both of those two grants, may come to fruition. And if that is also the case, then this will be the last CSF that we do. So there's a few factors at play that we don't know yet, but that's literally what is in front of us to get to market.
Great. And at this stage, and you don't need to answer this unless you would like this to go public when your offer goes live next week, but how much money are you looking to raise this round?
We're actually having really good conversations about this at the moment. We're having an overwhelming response from the community. So that's very encouraging. And so we're really working hard on this at the moment, but we believe that it will be finalised within the next few days. So if people could just be a little bit patient with us, that would be great. But we're really feeling the love. So we want to keep it realistic though.
Absolutely. So in the first 6 years, did you take out any loans to fund the business? And if so, have those been paid off?
So the main loan that we've sort of taken out, we purchased the property specifically for the project, and we lent against the property as the property values have gone up, and we put that money into the business. We don't intend to pay that back until the business itself is profitable and everyone is actually receiving dividends. That's our intention. So it certainly won't be, no loans will be paid out with CSF money in that regard. And that's just, we had to fund the R&D phase, and that was, we put our own money on the line to do that. So yeah, we've got skin in the game.
We want this to work.
Yeah.
I think one important thing to remember too is nobody's receiving any dividends. No founder is taking any money out of this as a dividend until everybody's being treated equally as an ordinary shareholder. That's how it works. We all own ordinary shares, and that's where dividends get paid.
Yep, we're all in the same boat.
Brilliant. So if phase 2 of funding is successful, when do you expect to be rolling out your product for retail?
Great question.
Yeah.
We really want to be in market early next year.
Yeah, 2026.
Yeah.
Yep.
We can
Exciting.
say 2026.
There are things beyond our control between here and there, but that's our goal.
Yeah. So there's a lot of construction that needs to happen. So I do want to reiterate that our proposal is already licensed by the Office of Drug Control. So we've got our license. What happens next is companies then have to build what they told the ODC they're going to build, including all the security measures. So we're expanding for our commercial site as we speak, as you saw in the video earlier. Once that's finished, then the ODC comes out and they do a permit inspection. And then at the moment, it takes a couple of months just for that to get approved. Bureaucratic red tape, we have to live with it. And yeah, so we're hoping that we can finish construction, as quickly as possible. And some of that is with the support of our investors. And then once that's built, the ODC come out, we get our permit, and we're already growing under R&D. So as soon as we have that permit, we're ready to go to ramp up. And so, yeah, we'll start growing. It's a very short crop cycle for cannabis, 12 weeks plus processing, and we'll be ready to have that product out the door to our downstream partners.
So for businesses that are going to buy your products, how will users know that your products are in the products of other businesses? Does that make sense? I don't think I'm wording myself correctly, but I'm trying to combine a few people's questions.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
Maybe on our own socials, we will have affiliations with particular brands, and that's how they'll be able to find out. So there'll be a mutual, or at least we'll be supporting them. Yeah, I imagine there will be a mutual support, and I believe that both businesses will be proud to say that they are affiliated. And yeah, I guess through the social network and through the investor hub and all of our comms, they'll be able to find out in that way.
Yeah, I think it's really important around advertising rules.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Emily's about to mention this, so I might let you mention it.
Yeah, cannabis being a Schedule 8 medicine means you can't do any marketing. So we can't publicly come out and say that product X is the people's plant. But in saying that, we already have, there's an amazing underground when it comes to cannabis, a lot of cannabis connoisseurs in the community, and there's a lot of online forums that talk about these kind of things. But for those that are already cannabis patients, it is, often people, if you take the time, you can find out where that product was grown. And of course, if you're buying organic sun-grown from the Sunshine Coast, well, probably us. We're the only ones doing it. So while we can't come out and market that where the regulations currently are, there will be ways of knowing. Yeah.
I think also too, the exciting part is when we have our own retail brand, which hopefully won't be too far after in the process.
Great. So at this point in time, are we seeing an upward trend in medical professionals here in Australia getting on board and endorsing medicinal cannabis as a viable optional treatment? And if so, to what degree?
Oh, wow. It's hard to keep up. We're seeing such an exponential rise in the number of medical professionals who are comfortable in prescribing cannabis nowadays. Like, it's 9 years since we changed the legislation. And up until that point, the cannabis was getting a really bad rap. As a Schedule 9, it basically means it has no medical value, which we know is just not true. So it's great that our legislation, now acknowledges that and has cannabis as a Schedule 8. But if you jump on the TGA website, that's the Therapeutic Goods Administration, you can actually, they have a dashboard that shows the number of approvals that are happening over different years, over different indications for males, for females, but you can also look at the number of prescribers, so authorized prescribers. There's 2 ways that you can get cannabis prescribed in Australia, and the doctor could be an authorized prescriber, which is the fastest growing area now, or you can go through the SASB portal, which is a special access scheme. But we're seeing so many more prescriptions going through the authorized prescriber pathway nowadays. But yeah, if you have a look at the TGA website, look at their cannabis dashboard, you can see you can see the exponential rise. It's hard to keep up. It's just off the charts.
Awesome. So we unfortunately have run out of time today, and there's a lot of questions, but I will be sending the list of questions to the team over at the People's Plant. So send prayers that they're going to get through all of these for you. I'm sure they will. They're super busy answering investor questions at the moment, which is fantastic and what we love to see. So thank you everybody for being so engaged and submitting your questions. If you do want to reach out directly, I have popped the profile link in the chat box. So head over there. If you haven't expressed your interest, please do so you're the first to know when the offer does go live to the public. We've seen a lot of interest come in for this campaign, so I imagine it will go pretty quickly. So we hope that you get on board nice and early. And if you have any questions surrounding CSF as a whole, please reach out to Birchal. We are happy to answer your questions. But thank you so much, Ben, Beck, and Emily, for your time today. We really appreciate it and can't wait to see how the offer goes next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thanks a lot, Em.